So it's all yours. Okay.
So, you know Perl, so you probably are not going to be interested in this. So after this, I have my lab, and we can talk a little more about this, and also okay, no?
I know nothing. All right. So I threw the Etherpad up there on the whiteboard. If everyone can just sign in, that would be fantastic. It's useful for us so that we can kind of keep track of who comes, so we know who our audience is, and if we ever need to ask for money for funding for something, people come to us. And then I think we're going to start off today by just everyone introducing themselves and giving like a tweet blank description of what you do. So why don't you start, Chris?
I'm Chris Christensen. I work in the Davidson lab, and we work on Atlantic salmon genomes. And that's it.
Yeah, sure. My name is Bruno. I work here in ABB. I am a computational biologist who works on research in genomics.
I'm Thea. I work in the Brinkman's lab doing bioinformatics stuff, mostly analyzing measurement data from my team.
I'm Tiffany Timmers. I'm a postdoc here in Michelle Wu's lab, and I work in C. elegans, and I'm very interested in uncovering what genes are important for sensing the environment.
Vitality, new to this field and maybe the genomics and
I'm David Hope. I'm working in the Center for Wildlife Ecology, and I'm working on modeling with some sandpiper behavior as they migrate through.
Okay, so I assume that we have installed a Perl interpreter. So if you don't have it, now would be a good time to get it. So you could either Google Strawberry Perl if you don't have that, and just install that real quick. I also have two data sets. They're really small so that it's easy to visualize what's going on with the data. So here's one of the files. It has the word cow in it. And then the other file is this one right here. And it's basically just an alignment file that you would get from BLAST if you use the appropriate flags for it. So start off with, I just want to do a quick intro into like what Perl is. So Perl is a programming language, and unlike C or a low-level language, it can be run very quickly. So with C, you would need to compile your script on every single computer that you're using. Whereas with Perl, you're just going to be able to run it on any computer that has the Perl interpreter right away. This makes it so it's much quicker to test out your script and see if it's working right. So why you'd want to use this as opposed to either command line scripts or command line programs or other programming languages is that so if we talk about shell programs like awk or sed, these are typically only used for a single file or multiple files, but not like doing complex things with them. And then you also have to use a set of already preset commands. And so this makes it so it's using a programming language makes it so it's fully customizable, fully how you want it to behave. And also there's less things to remember. If you're using multiple shell programs, then you have to memorize, oh, what does this command do for this particular shell program? And so that can actually be tedious and you have to look up all those things. Compared to other programming languages, if you talk about like R or I've heard of, well, anyway, like if you're using R, then it's going to take a lot more memory than a Perl script will. And I think that's all I wanted to talk about for that. So I'll go ahead and start showing you the script and like how you actually construct this. And if you have any questions, please let me know. So I'm going to be doing two different types of Perl scripting here. One's with an actual script, and then the other's just from the command line using one line commands. And so to begin with, if you could open up a blank document, and you can do it in any editor that you want, and then just save it to a place where you can find it later. So all scripts typically start off with the shebang line. And so this is a line that tells the computer where the Perl can be found. And you typically only need this line for scripts that you make executable. So if you are just running the command line with Perl, so if you have this and you say Perl and then the script that you want, you don't actually need this line. But if you're just running, say, this script like this, then you'd need this line for Unix command or for Unix systems. So that's the shebang line, and it's good practice to keep it in there. And so I also put in two pragmas. So these are like, this is what the interpreter, the Perl interpreter looks for. So the Perl program will read in this file and it'll see this use strict, and it's going to pre-process this script file to see if there's any errors. And I'll also use warnings. And so if you don't use these, the program will still work. But if you have an error, it may remain unknown to you because you don't have these strict rules. Yes.
So strict, it looks for syntax errors.
Yes, indeed.
So Perl will not throw an error if ever there's a syntax error. It'll just try and do its thing as much as it can.
Yes.
Okay.
Often that will be the case. It'll just try and go without any warnings or errors unless there's a fatal error, and then it'll stop no matter what.
Okay.
How do you comment out? Sorry.
Oh, so a comment is just a pound sign. So I'll comment these. Okay, so good question. I have no idea. Or someone else can look it up too. Are machine or operating system specific by definition? Yeah, it's just a conditional statement, I guess. Yep. So then I also use this module. It comes with most versions of Perl. And what this is going to do is actually it's going to take any flags that you put on the command line, and it will parse them out for you nicely. So I'll actually show you what it's doing here in a second. so once you have this module saying that you're going to use it, I like to comment that I'm going to put some general initial arguments. And then I'll actually set an argument. So right now I am creating a variable and I am setting the name or I'm setting the value of this variable to NA. And so this is very typical, like in R you would have CSV file 1 and it would look something like this. But it has very similar syntax, except for you put a my, and this lets the interpreter know that it is a variable, and you intentionally are creating it. If you didn't use this strict pragma here, then you don't need to include that. And so the nice thing about this is that when you have this my and you declare the variable, it will actually just tell you, oh, you have this variable down here. Say if you do a spelling error like CSV, like that, a spelling error, it'll say, oh, you spelled this wrong, so there's an error there. And you didn't declare it, so there's an error there. So it's a nice feature to look for like spelling errors.
And you only need the my when you're initializing the variable?
Exactly right. So let's create 3 variables.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
When you have to initialize variables. Or not really?
So
That's not empty, I guess technically.
right, you can just do this. Let's just make that one. It'll just be like that, and that is empty. It's actually equal to this, just nothing. And so I think that'll evaluate, like if you use like a expression like an if then statement, it'll evaluate as false. Yes.
And I guess maybe related to your question is that, for instance, here we're declaring that, but let's say if I were to later on assign to these, let's say I were to assign something later on to CSV file 3, and I haven't used the my constructor beforehand, will that be all right, or should I, like if I do an assignment, I guess I always have to use my whenever I use a variable for the first time.
If you use this use strict pragma, then yes,
If I use strict, I don't put my strict is gonna.
It'll say there's an error, and it's nice though because it catches a ton of spelling errors.
Can you initialize more than one variable in a line, like if you want to initialize multiple variables?
Sure, yeah. So I typically don't do this, but you can go like this, and go. You just go my. And then you just put it here. That. Okay, so then one final thing that'll be useful here. Okay, so we defined all the features that I'm going to be able to access from the command line here. So a part of this module here is using this nomenclature. So get options, and then now a thing that's much different than say Python is that the spacing in this and the white space does not matter. Perl just ignores any of the extra spaces that you might have. So you can format this in a way that you like it's more visually pleasing to you, whereas in like Python it'd be more difficult to do that. So like I was saying, you can play around with the white space. Typically, you might make this into one line, but if you have multiple values here, then it's easier to like visualize if you have two lines. Okay. So now I was going to try and actually do this from the command line, see how it looks so far. Yep.
Okay, so just to understand a bit what's going on here. So we have file 1 and file 2. I suppose that these are basically positional arguments. The first thing that's passed to the command line is going to be file 1. And the S is saying that interpret as a string. Is that what that's doing?
It's very similar. So like if we just go to a command line now, so let's save this file and let's go to a command line. And then we'll type in Perl for the interpreter. And then the script that we just made, in my case, it's practice script.pl. And then, so this get option module is actually allowing us to put in flags that specify which file to look at or which value to use. So in this case, I have file 1, and that corresponds to this CSV file. So, and you can name this whatever you want. Like you can name it, well, you can't name it like super short variables because you can actually interfere with Perl's one line, like
Like dash E or
-e, yeah, exactly right. So we'll try. We'll try this one. I'm not sure.
I would say probably not. Sometimes they get mad at you for that.
We'll see.
general convention and variable before starting with the number.
So the s here, the equals s, is expecting a string. So what we do is just put the location of the file. In this case, I want,
The alignments or database first?
let's go with the alignments first. You can name it like ALN, and that way you know, oh, this is the alignment file, something more specific. And then let's try this too as well. Then, oh, I spelled programming wrong. Okay, so if we just run this file, it's going to do nothing. But let's just see if it gives us any errors so far.
I got errors, but I think it's because I put, so white space does matter inside, obviously,
Inside,
the quotes.
yeah, you're gonna need to like,
And then I lose zero.
if
Yeah,
you put a space there, then it's gonna
No,
be
yeah, I put it, yeah.
problematic. Okay, so let's try and print these just to see that the program is actually getting these options. So typically to print something, you just use the command print, and then in quotations, just put what you want to print. So in this case, print the variables. And so it's a really simple command here. I just used the print command, and then in quotations, I put the first file, and this is the variable for that file. And using double quotation marks, Perl will actually interpolate what this is. But if you used a single quotation mark, it would literally just put what you see on there. So
That's akin to Unix shell. That's why if you put a double quotes and you have a hash variable, it will be replaced. But if you use single quotes and put $sign something, like $sign path for some reason, it will be just $sign path. That's why you use single quotes and all. I think it's because your command line, I think you're still using -2 as opposed to pop.
oh yes, thank you. Okay, so if we have that, can we see the blue sticky notes?
So mine will get.
Oh, I forgot to say semicolons at the end of every command, basically. Hooray.
Yeah, that's the one thing when you switch. I'm used to Python, is every time I go to another language, I have semicolons. Every time, like JavaScript, Perl, or any. You have to get used to it.
Yeah, and MATLAB, you use them to suppress the output, so you don't have to use them. But if you don't want the output printed for every command, that's
Yeah.
so different from language.
Yes, IDs are useful for that. Like, having IDs, like IDs set to different modes.
Yeah.
Like, they'll let you know, oh, you forgot. So before you get to fix them, before you actually run the code, and like,
Yeah, so my error was aborted due to compilation errors. Is that kind of a standard message if you forget a semicolon? Or is it, you get a variety of errors?
is that strict?
It's very strict. Like,
Is that the strict marker that's causing that?
no, that would happen even
Okay.
without the
It's broken,
strict.
really.
Like, it expects a semicolon after every command, and it's because it uses that white space so liberally. So like,
Yeah.
this is one command here, and if you didn't use that semicolon there, then it'll still think this next line is a part of the command.
Like in Python, the new line is the delimiter of each line, and in this case, it'll just read until it reaches semicolon.
Yes, exactly.
As it needs.
So like like if you want to make a script look nice and easy to read later, then Perl's great for that. But if you just want to do something much quicker and you're not going to look at it, then Python like might have an advantage there because you're just like, oh, hit return, no semicolons, and
There's a little, yeah, I think Python has just a little less visual noise, but you're restricted in how you can lay things out. That's the one thing that bugs me.
Although even that is valid in Python because it's fancy things, parentheses.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
if you put parentheses around anything, then you can do
Yeah.
basically whatever you want.
I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like every time I remove any semicolon, I get the compilation errors message. So I think it's specific to semicolon.
Does it tell you semicolons first?
No, it just says, like the error,
Yeah,
sorry.
this is the error.
Aborted, something aborted due to compilation errors.
Because I think what happens is basically like it reads that line, it continues past it, and I was like, this command isn't like make sense.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I'm
Oh, no,
getting
that's
different
not
ones
the,
where
just,
if I leave out this semicolon, then it actually tells me semicolon seems to be missing here, so it's smart enough to know where
Which one? Which semicolon?
the one along.
Probably because it could tell from context that if you have another mind of another command, so it can kind of infer. But in another situation, it's not so obvious that the semicolon was the reason.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So this is. Alright, so if I leave out this one, then it says syntax error here, whatever.
I guess this is best to guess, but that's what's like probably a colon, semicolon is.
Yeah.
By the way, do you mind if I add you to the etherpad?
Sure. But interesting, it still compiles if you leave off the
Want me
last.
to just copy the code?
I guess because yeah, it
Because
just
it's
like
and,
And
it
then
doesn't
see
need
the
an end of
output?
line.
makes sense. Then I think one of the designs is like about Perl is required to have basically that.
So do you want, I don't know if we can't figure it out, I just pasted the code in etherpad.
They can try last name or first name.
Yeah,
Like
I
this.
don't think it's a code problem.
Oh, you don't think it's the code prompt, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's a
Question mark.
like
Yeah?
yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure yet.
I'm not sure if it's an app or not.
That?
Yeah, try the doing that shit.
Ah, yeah.
Yes, I don't know what the problem is there.
Do you get on the phone? You're on the phone.
Okay, so we printed these, and a lot of the typical like syntax for regular expressions is also you can use in this. So, like if you wanted tab, it'd be \t. If you wanted return, it'd be \n. And so like this would or if you wanted \n. Okay, so then that. So a challenge now is to, so right now I have the default CSV file set to a comma.
Here you mean the delimiter?
Delimiter, yes, sorry. How about we change that from the command line to a \t or a tab delimited file? Because all these files that I have are tab delimited.
If you look on the etherpad, there's a few links. It might be on the GitHub. I think if you go look on the GitHub, if you go on the site prog,
Oh, yeah, just what are they supposed to represent? I've already done
They're just, so one of them is blast alignment. So if you were to blast something, so if you take a subsequence and you try and find subsequences, it returns like where there's like basically where these sequences match somewhere else. And then the second one, I'm not sure
Get that.
differences.
Yeah, this one. What version are you using?
I'm not sure.
It just downloaded like a month ago.
No, I'm not sure. Here's what's like my name.
What's the package? I think if you try that, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
It's just basically to be able to add the delivery as a comment.
Just blue stickies when you have sticky notes. I shouldn't say stickies. Okay, so for the challenge, basically you just have to add this line, including a comma, at the get options portion. And then if you go here, you can add the flag CSV or whatever you named it. And then you'd want to use the quotation marks, I think, to indicate tab. And we can see what that looks like here.
If you forgot the quotes, then it just gets T back.
Yeah, so
Slash.
it's pretty strict about how you put the flags on here if it's like non like standardized, and if there's any spaces you need to include quotations as well.
Doing something and then add that.
Okay, and so let's comment this out for the rest of the script. So now we'll be opening a file and then one of these files and then parsing them. So to open a file, you use the open command, and then you give the handle of this file a name. And I typically do in or out depending on whether I'm getting information from the file or outputting it to a file. This is a case where you don't actually need special declarations of this variable, this handle, file handle name, just because Perl knows that it's a file handle when it's at this location. So I put this in, and then you need to be tell Perl if you're going to be reading it in or if you're going to be outputting it. And to do that, you use the less than or greater than signs. And in this case, less than is a read in only. And then you put the name of the file. So CSV file 1. And because it's in double quotes, it'll be interpolated so that it knows the name of the file that you put into the command line. And then to finish this off, you can do that and then put a semicolon. If this file errors, we want to know the errors. And so a typical addition to this is by giving the or command, we'll kill the program.
I really love this part of Perl.
Just kill the program by using the die function.
So aggressive. It's like, do this or die. Do this or die. It's like, well.
So we'll say we can't open the. So with the die command, we can it'll actually give us an error message, and this is the error message we can specialize for this particular file.
So Perl would normally give an error message that would suggest that the file is the issue. So it'd be a bit more cryptic. Is that?
Let's try that. So let's just do this, and then we'll give it a name that's ridiculous, that doesn't exist. Just go like that. Yeah, see, it opened it, or it tried to open it, but it failed, and then it didn't give an error. And so, yeah, you need that.
Comment that and then rewrite that.
Yes.
Oh, and maybe don't forget to add a double quote at the end of the first.
Oh, thank you. See, it says
I see. Okay.
can't
Yeah,
open
that's
file.
definitely more that's useful.
Yeah.
So now,
So then that just opened the file, and now we can read the file in line by line. There's an option in Perl that you can read the entire file into memory and then use that to actually analyze it. But the better method is to read the file in line by line. That way, if you're reading in a gigabyte size file, then you're only reading a tiny amount. You're only using a tiny amount of memory at any one given moment. And so that's the typical way that programmers will write it. So to do that, we'll use the while function. This is like most looping structures, and that it's going to go through this file line by line.
Can I just interject? I got an error when I ran the code that you ran. Maybe I missed if you got it too, but it says name in used only once, possible typo. Is that because I gave two flags, like I passed two files, but we're moving one?
It may be that you haven't actually used it now. You're going to be using it in this next section.
We'll see if it goes away.
Yeah, it should go away. That's another part of the use warnings and use strict, is that it'll give you that message if you have a variable that you never used. It'll tend to flag that. So then, so we open this, and then what you want to do is actually use the function called Chomp, and this actually removes the end character of a line. So at every single line in a text file, it's going to have a return symbol, and typically you don't want this in your analysis, so you'll want to remove it. And Perl has a special function called Chomp to do that. And so you can say Chomp, and what you're chomping is the line, and Perl is reading this line into this special variable. And if you omit this special variable, it'll work perfectly fine, because whenever you call a function and you do not give it a variable to work on, it'll automatically use this special empty variable. And so this is equivalent to this. It's good to have that if you're new to this, that way you know. Yep.
Here the value in capital. So is that a variable just like CSV file, or is it does it have a special? Is it not a variable to something else?
It's a file handle, like specifically, and it has this value
Okay.
as the file handle now.
Okay. So this file handle you only can use in certain contexts, like here, while, and you have to put those
Yes,
brackets around.
or the greater than less than sign. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
It doesn't have to be in, it's whatever you're naming the file handle, right?
Yes. So if you decided to actually use like something like input there, then you'd put that input there as well. So then once we have that, we can, let's go ahead and just print this line. Make sure everything's working so far.
And then we're chopping, and then we're adding
Okay, so that's what I got.
No, I just made it up.
So when do we know when we put the quotes and when we don't put the quotes? Or is it just print that we have to put the quotes and interpolate the variable thing?
Typically, yes. If you want, it's anytime you want to interpolate.
Okay.
So what you can do is just go like this. I will print the line. It's not going to have any return signs, so
But this would work. This wouldn't fail.
this would not fail.
Oh, okay.
So if we go like this, this is actually all one line now, though. So it's anytime that you need to like interpolate, and one of the interpolations are these characters, the \n.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So now we're going to break up this line into the sections. So to do this, I'm using an array structure, and this is just a list of values. So I'm going to split the lineup based on the default CSV we created earlier in our challenge. And I'm going to be using the line that we're working on.
Couple questions.
Okay.
Question one is the little fancy symbols in front of the variables. They're dependent upon type. So the
Yes.
at and the $sign.
Yes,
So strings get a $sign, arrays get an at symbol.
exactly. Yeah.
And you have to use that every single time you're accessing that variable. It's almost part of their name.
Yes.
And then what are the slashes inside split?
So this is like a regular expression.
Okay.
So this split function right here is a regular expression. So you can use anything that you'd use with the regular expression. So this is just the matching regular expression part. So if you use that,
You're just grabbing. This is like so in regular expressions in Python or R when you're doing matching, like when you're grabbing groups, this is like the parentheses sign, those slashes.
Well, it's a typical, when you do Perl, have you ever used set at the command line?
No, I haven't
Yeah.
used that one.
It's a very typical thing where you put, and it's probably, I think all of these just take it from Perl, so I think Perl's the one that started this. But basically like slash, and usually you do, and you set, for instance, when you want to replace something, you do slash, where 3 characters repeated, and what's in the first slash gets matched, and then the second slash is what gets replaced in the match. So this is just a typical, I don't, does it need to be slashes?
You can use
Yeah,
tick
it's
marks and
Any character, right? Any character, the first character, it will read through, and then as soon as it hits that same character again, that's matching regular expression. And in this case, it finds all of the instances in that line are matching that regular expression. And so I guess here, since we can pass it from the command line. Let's say you have a file, and it has, let's say, multiple spaces between each column. I think like it happens, but it's stupid. But some like files will have like string of spaces. You can't spell on the space because then it'll have like each space will have its own column. So what you can do is you can do space plus. So any string of spaces will be matched as a delimiter. So I guess that's the power of using regular expression in this case.
Yeah, no, I understand like the regular expression part. I haven't worked in a language that has used these slashes as part of the function invoking the regular expressions, right?
Yeah.
Because the slashes aren't part of regular expressions.
No, I think they're just a common construct to delimit regular expression. And I don't think there's much. I don't know what the logic behind it.
But I should be thinking of these slashes as delimiting the regular expression.
Yeah.
yes.
Kind of like the angle brackets are delimiting file object.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is you don't need to use slashes. It can be anything.
Yeah, you can use backticks or
It can
yeah,
be,
pretty
like,
much
for instance,
anything.
when I'm using regular expressions of the command line and I'm parsing something as file paths, like using slashes is annoying because then I'm gonna have slashes and I have to I'm gonna escape every slash that's actually from my regular expression, so those gonna use colons, for instance. So I think the only way Split probably expects a regular expression and you can basically put anything.
Exactly right. So like this is another way you might do something. So like this is the line you're looking at, and you're saying like, does it match this regular expression? So like if you have an if statement and then oh sorry, let's just get rid of that line then. Okay, so once we split the line up, what we can do is take the individual parts of this array. So let's print just the first element of the line. And to access this array element, it's kind of similar to how you access different columns in R. And so you give it the name of this array, and then you say, oh, just the first element, which starts at 0 here.
Now we don't use an at, we use the dollar sign because
It's a string now. Yeah. So let's do that. And then we should see, oh, have this there too. So let's comment that out. So it should just be the first column there. And you can do this with any column. Just try this first column or the second column. Just like that. And then at the end of this file, it's good practice to put close and then in. And so you just opened and closed the file there.
But here you do not put
No, so these markers here are specifically for input. So if you just had this, it would look for standard input. So
okay.
so what it's going to do is it's actually going to pause and ask for it. So see it paused. Now you do. So that's the input, and if you don't have the value there, it's the standard input. If you do have a yep. So let's do this. Let's just copy and paste the second one to open the second file.
don't understand what happened there because it paused and got input, but then it was the thing that you typed in was still added to that while loop.
It wasn't. That was just what I typed to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. You've written that, but it wasn't double capped.
Exactly right. Okay, let's do the same thing with the second file. So we need to switch which file is opened. So I just do that with this second file here. And then we can just print the first column for each of them. So
Actually, if there's a thing at 12:30, then you'd be like, oh, it's 10:30.
Yeah. Last week I was getting stares from Esther. Like during the core session, like I feel like even though like everyone was kind of I think it was
okay, so how we can tie these two files together and do something useful with the two files is actually by creating a hash. And so a hash is a data construct similar to a string or a array construct in that you take a value and then you give information associated with that value. So it's very similar to a dictionary. So like you'd have like a cat, and then the definition of the cat would be a small mammal, quadruped, whatever. And so what we can do here is take from this file here, we can say, okay, this marker, it aligns to this chromosome. And we can say, okay, well, it also aligns to this cow chromosome. And so we know we can link these two informations and bring them together. So the key here is the marker name here. And so let's create a hash. And so this is just, you tell the program it's a hash by giving it the % symbol. And then you declare it with the my sign. Let's just call it hash. And this is how you make an empty hash, is by using these parentheses here. And so to populate it, we can go here to this first line, and then we use this structure syntax to say, so this is the, this is how you say that this is the hash key or the actual name of the thing. And then we'll say that the second column is what we're giving as the definition.
Is it $sign hash?
Yes.
That's confusing.
So what you're giving as the value here is a string in most cases. It can actually be a link to another array or a hash, but it's still given as a single string. And this is the syntax just defining that it's a hash rather than an array. You'd use the squiggly brackets instead of the actual brackets. And so we define that hash there. And what we can do now is for any line here that matches that hash, we can print out this element along with that information. So if we do an if statement, sorry, I don't know.
Bunch of entries at the end.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Okay, so what I did is I created a hash here, and that's empty. And then we just populated the hash with this column of the file that we opened, the first file. And then this second column is the definition that we gave it. Now in this second file, we can actually say if this element, the first column, is also in this hash, let's do something with that. So I used an if command, and I said if this element exists, then we can print it. And let's eliminate the rest of the print commands by putting a hash symbol in front of them. Yeah.
I'm just gonna interject for a second first. Someone's at their room booked at 12:30.
All right.
So we can end in 2 or 3 minutes.
This is a good ending spot as any, I suppose. Like, you learned how to open a file, and that's good enough, I suppose. All right. So, yeah, if you have questions or anything, just I'm more than happy to try and help. So, stop by my lab.
Thank you, Chris. And then if people have feedback, we can